The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2020 Week 8 Waiver Wire Pickup Power Rankings. NFL injuries, maybe some trades, some buy lows, some sell highs. We'll see how far in depth we get into this. However, I do want to let you know that the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League link will be available in the description once it has been made available to me. I'm expecting that maybe Monday evening, maybe Tuesday morning. It will most definitely be in the ranking show with Jake Seeley on Tuesday if you're looking for the link, and you'll probably want to get into the contest pretty early. Fills incredibly fast. $15, no rake, 3 max entry. It's the best tournament on DraftKings. Why wouldn't people want to go play that? If you're looking for the updated waiver wire pickup rankings and injury report, because after stuff happens, once I've recorded this, I can't go back and change it, so you're stuck with the timestamp that I'm doing this with right now. But the article will be in flux and will be updated all the way through Tuesday evening. You can find that on dkplaybook.com and in the description of this video and podcast, as you can find all of the free tools at ftndaily.com. You got your air yard, your opportunity share, red zone report, all that good stuff, plus all the premium tools if you want them, already at a 25% discount. Plus, use code Mayo, get an extra discount. Optimizer, the projections for any slate that you want to. If you want to play the Monday Night Showdown slate, there's projections and an optimizer for that. Make it very easy on yourself, very quick to do, plus all the cheat sheets up there too. But just go check out the free tools. It's pretty cool. Not going to lie to you. Smash the like button to the video. And in the comment section, if you have a question about the Week 8 waiver wire in terms of an ad drop, maybe a buy low, sell high trade sort of thing, any fantasy football question you have, leave it in the comment section of this video, and I will get around to answering it on probably, as periodically, put it that way. I'll answer them up until I release the ranking show. If you have like start-sit questions for the week, you probably want to keep those until I actually do the rankings, because it's Monday. What's it matter whether start-sit is on a Monday morning? It doesn't matter. People haven't done quite enough research to give you a proper answer. Or you can just wait until the ranking show comes out and I actually have the players listed in order, and that probably clears it up for you anyway, if you're one to listen to me, which, it's dubious, to say the least. I want to shout out fantasy guy Drew up at ftndaily.com. Came second on DraftKings this week. A last-second play took him from $300,000 down to $150,000. It's got a bite. The 150K is fucking awesome. Second in the Wildcat is something that you would have taken going into the week, but being in first place. And if you check out his Twitter, you can see what he actually did. He was actually losing going into the late slate of games with a team that was very similar to him, but he just went and looked at it, and utilizing the late swap, he found out they were both on Chris Carson. He was marginally behind. So knowing that, he was able to pivot onto Tyler Lockett in that circumstance, because as he said, he wasn't playing for second. He wanted to play for first. He knew if he had kept Chris Carson in, there was at least one team he could not pass because they had the same player, just based on how the roster construction worked. And the biggest key to him doing that on DraftKings was that he saw that they had a running back in their slot. He could calculate how much money was left. And it's like, he most definitely is playing Chris Carson. And Drew had Chris Carson in his flex spot. Now, that's really the key. The later you can push players into your flex spot, the better, because it gave him more opportunity at that salary to not just pivot onto a running back, to pivot onto any player he wanted. He had enough money for Tyler Lockett, pivoted onto Tyler Lockett, and boom! All of a sudden, soaring up. Although he got caught by a stack from the Seattle-Arizona game at the very last second, it did end up proving to be the right move. So you should always be on top of that stuff. That's like the extra 5% you can put in, utilizing the late swap, seeing where you're at in tournaments. Obviously, we don't get the Sunday night game every single week, if ever. This was just a rare circumstance, but it's good that he was able to put that method to good use. You should always be looking at late swap on DraftKings to go through it. So congratulations to Drew. Another guy, ftndaily.com. Boom. Use code Mayo. You can find his picks behind there as well and use all the information that's provided. Let's jump into the waiver wire for Week 8. Teams on bye: Arizona, Washington, Jacksonville, and Houston. Is for half-point PPR scoring. Again, the updated rankings can be found in the description of this video and up on dkplaybook.com. Chase Edmonds is the number one pickup of the week. He's followed by LaMichael Pirine, JaMychal Hasty, Tevin Coleman, who should return probably this week, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, not sure about Mark Ingram yet. I'll go through the full injury report as well. Gio Bernard, Josh Kelly, Carlos Hyde, Zach Moss, and then you got Latavius Murray, Wayne Gallman, Boston Scott, Cam Akers, Jamal Williams, Royce Freeman, Jeremy McNichols, who is going to be the primary backup with Evans on IR to Derrick Henry. Should anything happen to Derrick Henry, Adrian Peterson, J.D. McKissick, and Rex Burkhead. Injuries for the week. Kenyon Drake exited the game on Sunday evening, was carted off the field. Wouldn't expect to see him anytime soon. Now, the problem with Edmonds is in most competitive leagues, he's gone. He's available in less than 60% of leagues overall. That's the criteria for this article, so I can't just individually just go look at your team. This is, it's a broad-based video. It's a broad-based column. So if Edmonds is there, spend all your fab money, go get Chase Edmonds. Not sure the extent of Drake's injury yet. Doesn't look good, put it that way. Chris Carson exited that game as well with a foot injury. Now, he didn't come back in yet. Pete Carroll said, it's not that big of a deal. Seems kind of strange that you would know that right away. Looks like it's a foot sprain. He could miss a game or two. We'll have to monitor that going forward. But Carlos Hyde would become the pickup you want. Now, if it comes out that Chris Carson is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks or something like that, Carlos Hyde would become the guy after Chase Edmonds that you go pick up, obviously. But we just don't have that information. We probably will not have that information by the time waivers comes around. So you kind of have to take their word for it. That's why Carlos Hyde has not risen in the pickup rankings as of yet. After Carlos Hyde, who I would expect to be the primary ball handler on the ground and pick up a few targets along the way, a lot like Chris Carson did, just basically put Carlos Hyde into the Chris Carson role. He's not good as Chris Carson, so that's a problem. But in terms of the pass-catching role, you'd think that Travis Homer and DJ Wicked Dallas get some run in the passing game, but Carlos Hyde would end up playing the majority of snaps most of the time. So he would be worth adding as a running back 3 that you could flex into your team every single week, especially if you were devoid of running back talent to begin with. Phillip Lindsay is going through the concussion evaluation right now, and obviously in his absence, Melvin Gordon sucks, so he put the ball on the ground twice, and that's just what happens when you're Melvin Gordon. He's still going to see run. If Lindsay misses time, Royce Freeman for deeper formats could become somewhat interesting. Jeff Wilson hurt his ankle. It appears to be a high ankle sprain, so 4 to 6 weeks right there. Raheem Mostert, Colonel Mostert, already on injured reserve. It came out after the game. Kyle Shanahan told us, thanks for the tip, Kyle, after the fucking fact, that Jerick McKinnon had always been planned to be rested in week 7. Well, that's fantastic news. So now we're dealing with a situation where Jerick is going to be there. It looks like Tevin Coleman will be activated from injured reserve to get back into the mix. Then you have JaMychal Hasty, who everyone really wants to be a thing, yet just hasn't been a thing whatsoever. I would expect Coleman to come back and split it with Jerick with a little bit of Hasty going on as well. I have him at number 3 right now because I want to see if Coleman is activated or not. That might be a little bit high. Of Hasty at 3, Coleman at 4 in terms of the rankings, but those guys can be flip-flopped once more information comes down. They'd probably be both pushed down. If Jerick's going to be fine, it would be Coleman or Jerick for me to lead it. Coleman was obviously dropped in a lot of leagues, so you can go and get him if you need be and kind of roll the dice in that situation. San Francisco wants to run the ball. Their offensive line and scheme make it very possible for them to run the ball with basically anybody at this point. So just, you're never going to know which guy to play is kind of the problem. But the upside, it's unlike the Patriots backfield where, I don't know which of these 4 guys is ever going to touch the ball. It turns out it doesn't fucking matter because they're all terrible and they don't do anything. At least in the Niners backfield, you have the opportunity at least to have, if you pick the right guy, they're probably going to go off. Like if you pick Jeff Wilson on Sunday, it's like, this is a bonanza. I definitely won this week. Or Jerick one of those weeks. Or Mostert one of those weeks. If it ends up being Coleman, it ends up being Coleman. It's a difficult situation to parse through, but there is upside to be mined from this situation, which is why I don't hate it. After that, Devonta Freeman exited the Thursday nighter with an ankle injury. No word yet on whether he's going to return or not for week 8, but it would be Wayne Gallman as the primary backup. If you're looking for that spot, he probably gets a start over Dion Lewis in week 8, should that be the case. Aaron Jones was close to playing on Sunday against Houston. Obviously, Jamal Williams stepped in and did a fantastic job. If you started him, it really worked out for you. He's still available. I do have him pressed down on the list, though. It's good to know that if Jones misses time, it's going to be all Williams and not A.J. Dillon, which was something that I was a bit scared of coming into the week. However, it does look like Jones is going to be back. Williams obviously worth rostering, but he has no real fantasy impact if Aaron Jones is going to be healthy and playing. So that's why he's down on the list. Joe Mixon didn't play with a foot injury. Gio stepped in. He got all the run. I believe it was, let's just take a quick look here. Scan. You can find all the snap shares in my pickup column as well. Gio played 75% of the snaps. It's pretty good. Not going to lie to you, that's exactly what we're looking for. Jamal Williams played 89% of the running back snaps over A.J. Dillon in that circumstance. They were on the field somewhat at the same time. Dillon played 23%, but with Bernard, 75%. Samaje Perine played 26%. He played 3/4 of the snaps. I would expect that if Mixon was to miss more time. Not sure Mixon is going to miss more time, though, because if not, again, if we had better injury information on how much longer these guys were going to be out, it would really shift up the rankings. So this might be a week where you throw a bunch of lower end fab bids around because you don't know, if we don't know what the injury circumstance is going to be, that maybe you get lucky and grab one of these guys if they're not already gone. I would expect Williams and Gio to be gone just because they played this weekend. Everyone picked them up and played them. They were top 15 options at running back, so you'd be crazy to not have played them unless your team rules in that circumstance. This stuff doesn't matter to you anyway because you're just rolling with the guys that you got. But if we don't know the injury concerns in a week like this, like I said, whether it be Hasty or Coleman or Perine, not Samaje Perine, LaMichael Perine on the Jets, who's just better than Frank Gore at this point. Although yesterday Gore did end up with more rushing yards. It was a revenge game, though, so you kind of throw that off to the side. That you throw in like $3, $4, $5 bids on some of these guys, and if someone goes out and spends 25, you didn't want to spend 25 on these guys anyway. So if you can get them for cheap, you can get them. Edmonds is a different circumstance where if it does sound like Drake's done for the year, you go spend all your fab money on him if he's available. These guys don't fall into the same territory. Miles Sanders, knee, did not play last Thursday night. No word on his status for week 8 as of yet. If not, you're going to see the Boston Scott, Corey Clement show. Once again, generally going to be Boston Scott. Boston Scott did play 70% of the snaps in a game where they were down for a bunch. They were up early and then down for a bunch, so it seemed like he was relatively game script agnostic in that matchup. He doesn't have a ton of upside, but he's still a good player, and he'd be a viable flex option for you moving forward. Chris Thompson was placed on the COVID list, and Divine Izigbo ended up returning last week and then got hurt with a hamstring injury. Raquel Armstead is not returning this year. James Robinson is kind of shaping up. Now, this could change once Chris Thompson ends up returning from the COVID list, but James Robinson basically played every snap against the Chargers. It was crazy. He played 90% of snaps. He was involved in the receiving game. He got all the goal line work, all the between the 20s work. There are so few running backs like that right now. Someone asked me today whether you would trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire for James Robinson. I think that I would, to tell you the truth. I don't know really what we can glean from the Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation from Sunday. They scored 2 defensive touchdowns. They were up the entire time. It was weird weather. Obviously, that Clyde Edwards-Helaire ended up outgaining Le'Veon Bell and played 51% of the snaps to Bell's 33%. DeAndre Washington got back into the mix. I totally forgot he was on the team. That was 18% of the work. So it just seemed like a situation where they didn't want to get anyone hurt. I do believe that Edwards-Helaire is still a, mid-tier running back 2, high-end running back 2, but James Robinson is probably a low-end running back 1, and we look at opportunity for him, at least in the next few weeks while Thompson is out, and even when Thompson returns, he's still going to get like a 70+% of that split. The offense sucks, which is the biggest problem, but if you're just getting that much volume, you're going to be valuable, so I would take James Robinson over Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this moment in time. Mark Ingram, we're not sure about his high ankle sprain. If it truly is a high ankle sprain, he's not playing this week, but we'll see what the reports say. That's why I have the Gus Bus and J.K. Dobbins at the top, near the top of the pickups list this week. Gus Edwards is just wildly unowned, and he probably would get, I don't know, they'll probably play the hot hand. Plus, you have to account for Lamar stealing touchdowns away. But if they're going to run the ball on the ground, which they do like to do from time to time, Gus Edwards, I would guess, over Dobbins would be the primary ball handler. In the passing game, I would assume it would still be J.K. Dobbins. They don't have gigantic upside because Lamar is there to steal their touches and the uncertainty of where the ball is actually going to go between the two. And then they're going to give it to Jean-Luc Ricard as well near the goal line. That always ends up fucking happening. So that's why I'm a bit more down on them in terms of pickups. If I knew Ingram was out for sure, I'd probably bump them up a little bit, but at the same time, they're not to be trusted. It's like Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones shaping up to have a fantastic matchup against the Raiders this week. Oh, Leonard Fournette is active. And I'm like, yeah, well, Jones has been so good. They've used him so much. And what happens? Fournette ends up playing the majority of the snaps, and Ronald Jones does nothing. So he gets there eventually, but Fournette was the one they were using in that game and not Ronald Jones. And now, next week, when I do the rankings, and it's like, who do I put higher, Fournette or Jones? Well, Fournette got the majority of the work last week. Let's rank him higher, and he ends up getting like 3 snaps the next week. It's a maddening situation, and the more you can avoid those situations, which I know is impossible, but you don't want to have too many of them on the go at the same time. It feels like the Ravens running back carousel, even with only 2 of them back there, could shape up a lot like Tampa's, which just leads to a lot of bench mistakes at that point. That's why one of the reasons why I would like trading Allaire for James Robinson. Like with Allaire, I could definitely be wrong on that. Le'Veon Bell could overtake him in this situation. I would expect it to be Allaire. I would feel confident about that, but I know it's James Robinson. There is value in that, knowing, hey, this is a guy I can put in my lineup, and I know the backup's not going to take his job 3 minutes into the fucking game. So that is one of the reasons to go ahead and do that. Dalvin Cook should be back this week. Austin Eckler still on injured reserve. Good news for Nick Chubb. Right now, he's on injured reserve, but Greg Stefanski says he could come back for week 10, which would be a nice boost to the Browns offense, which just lost Odell Beckham for the year. So when we get into the wide receiver pickups, we'll scan through the injuries to kick this off. Odell Beckham out for the year with the torn ACL. So he gone. Feel free to drop Sir Odell in this moment. In the pickup list, I actually have Rashard Higgins at number 4, and then my boy, Mario Van Peebles. Donovan Peoples-Jones. I have it number 22. Yeah, he had the big catch at the end of the game. He's a very good athlete. Maybe he gets more involved, but it's not like you were starting Beckham and Landry every single week anyway. So take Beckham out of that, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, the guy who was the backup to Odell when Odell couldn't do anything, he's going to be the great play. I think Higgins is going to command a very decent target share, and eventually Austin Hooper will work his way back from appendicitis as well. I wouldn't trust it, but it does seem like a good situation where you could pick up a lot of volume for a guy who's completely unknown. So the overall rankings, Sterling Shepard, number 1, Christian Kirk, the king of the touchdown, apparently. Brandon Ayuk, we'll talk about Debo in a second. Rashard Higgins, Zach Pascal, Cole Beasley, Cole's Hole, Jalen Reagor. He's going to be coming back. More on him in a second. Preston Williams, Marquez Callaway, and Traquan Smith, 9 and 10. Callaway was a preferred option. Yeah, he left the game late, but it sounds like he's going to be okay with an ankle injury. And we'll see where Michael Thomas is at the moment, because it's not looking great based on everything that we're hearing right now at a Saints camp. So Beckham, like I said, I prefer Higgins over Peoples-Jones in this spot. I think you can go pick him up. Jalen Reagor and his thumb injury was expected to be out till like December, but now he's been activated from the injured reserve as of today, Monday, and he is questionable for week 8. So he probably doesn't end up going this week in the Sunday night game. I just got an email. Boom. The Listeners League link is now going to be in the description of this video and podcast. So you can get your spot early in the DraftKings Listeners League. But I'd go pick up Reagor. Obviously, Fulgham has really turned into a wide receiver 1 option on that team, but Reagor, the first round pick, is going to be given every opportunity to command a very high target share. Who do they have left? Deshaun Jackson got hurt. He's going to be out another 6 weeks, probably the year anyway, so he's not coming back. Will we ever see Alshon Jeffrey? I don't know. Does it matter at this point? No, Ertz, Goddard will eventually come back. Greg Ward's just not cutting it. So you could have Fulgham and you could have Reagor. And there's very few people to compete for targets. It's not going to be Hightower. He'll get his 2 or 3 shots per game. JJ will get involved periodically, but those will be the 2 guys. And he was dropped en masse because it looked like he was going to be out for so long. At least that's what they told us. Turns out they were lying about it. Could be good news to fantasy owners, though. Deontay Johnson hurt himself again. Coming back, playing great, scoring 2 touchdowns. Then he just gets hurt towards the end of the game. We'll see how serious his injury is. If not, Chase Claypool, you can bump him up once again. When Juju and Johnson are both healthy and on the field, Claypool doesn't do much. You take away Johnson, all of a sudden Claypool is the best wide receiver in the league. It's crazy, the depth that the Steelers have at this moment in time. Marquez Callaway left that game, like I mentioned, at the very end with an ankle injury, led the team in receptions and targets, and he said after the game that he's going to be okay. The rest of the guys on that team, Michael Thomas with his hamstring problem, that's different from the ankle that he had earlier this year, did not play this week, and there's already rumors that he's not going to play in week 8. That's why I have Callaway bumped up a little bit, plus Emmanuel Sanders has been placed on the COVID-19 list. Wouldn't expect him back next week either. Long-term wise for Callaway, he's a rookie, so he could end up being pretty good in ingraining himself into the Saints offense. But at the same time, he looked better than Traquan Smith. He was more used than Traquan Smith. For next week, I'd rather have Callaway than Traquan Smith. That easy. Tim Patrick hurt his hamstring in the Broncos game. He exited the game. As we've seen with hamstring injuries throughout the course of the season, it's not a 1-week thing. It's not like you pull your hamstring in one game and you're back the next week. We just have not seen that. So I would anticipate that Tim Patrick is going to be out for multiple weeks, which opens up the door for Deshaun Hamilton, more for Jerry Jeudy in this offense, and hopefully Noah Fant. Well, he did play. He played through injury and did not look very good. Even he came out after the game and said it. Hopefully he's a bit healthier next week. So if you had picked up Tim Patrick, Hopefully he's okay. Same goes with Deebo Samuel. He exited the game with a hamstring injury as well. Wouldn't expect to see him back. Fortunately, it's a different injury than he sustained at the beginning of the year, which caused him to miss the first few weeks. That was a foot injury. This is a new injury. But again, probably 2 to 3 weeks before we see Deebo again. I hope I'm wrong on that because I have Deebo in a bunch of spots. Would love to see him back. Again, that's why Brandon Ayuk is bumped up in the waiver wire rankings as well. Richie James went down for the 49ers in this game. No team is more IR ridden than the 49ers at this point, yet they're still above 500. So here we go. Brashad Perriman got knocked out at the end of the Bills game. So he's going to be in concussion protocol. Not sure what's going to go on with him, whether he ends up playing in week 8. Jamison Crowder missed the game with a groin injury. He could be traded. Braxton Berrios is the primary fill-in in the slot. As we saw for Jamison Crowder, it'll be Jeff Smith on the outside along with Denzel Mims, who returned last week, should those guys continue to miss time. You don't want to play them. I'm just telling you how it lays itself out. Maybe there's a decent prop at like over 1 catch, which I bet on Jeff Smith once, and I bet it over 3.5 catches. He had 11 targets and couldn't get there. Thanks, Jeff Smith. But you can find some decent props on these guys that the books are sleeping on a little bit because they play for the shitty Jets, and they're not very good. So that's a way to look at it. N'Keal Harry got bumped out of that game with a concussion. You can't start any Patriots until Cam figures it out. More on him later on in the week, because I really want to dig into what's going on with the Patriots, what's going on with Cam. Is this a shoulder injury? Is this the repercussions from having COVID-19 and coming back after 2 weeks? We've seen this with Zeke too. Like Zeke had COVID earlier in the offseason. He just hasn't looked right all year. Is it because the Cowboys' offensive line sucks? Maybe. Is it because Zeke maybe isn't as good as maybe we thought? Maybe he's declining in skill? Maybe. Is there more to this? I don't know what the answer to any of this is. So I'm just trying to, I'm always trying to find where the logic is in it. Why is this happening? Is it just because they're not good anymore? I find that hard to believe, especially because Cam looked great 3 weeks ago, and since then he got COVID-19, and now he looks horrendous. I'd probably say that has something to do with it. Maybe it's just fatigue. Maybe it's muscle atrophy from not being able to move around. Maybe it's lack of preparation. I don't know exactly what it is, but hopefully we can find that out. John Brown missed the Bills game with a knee. Gabe Davis didn't do anything. It was all Cole Beasley. I still wouldn't hate Davis if Brown continues to miss time. Devontae Parker hurt his groin before the bye week. Obviously, Tua is starting now. He should be okay coming out of it, but monitor his status. Deshaun Jackson placed on injured reserve. Sammy Watkins was not placed on injured reserve. However, he's still up in the air for the week 8 game with Kansas City. I would say he's probably like 50-50 to go at this point. Bryan Edwards again missed the game with an ankle injury. That is opening up Nelson Aguilar in the Raiders offense. I think when Edwards comes back, we see Aguilar get pushed to the side a little bit, although he's been very good. He got the long touchdown pass to begin the game. Then he went full Aguilar and dropped 3 in a row. Classic Aguilar, if you've ever paid attention. Alshon Jeffrey, Lord knows when he's coming back. And Alan Lazard is still on injured reserve as of right now. Shifting over to tight ends for the week in terms of the pickup. Can't pick up Jimmy Graham anymore. He is above the threshold in terms of ownership. And I got to give a shout out to my guy, T. Higgins. He had been number 1 in the pickup rankings for 3 weeks in a row. He's finally above the threshold. What does T. Higgins do? Comes through again. T. Higgins fucking rules. Oh, I should probably hit on Antonio Brown too before we get to tight ends. I did a full video on Antonio Brown. I put an article up on FTN Fantasy. Free to go read if you enjoy my take on it. Here's Joe Biden style. Here's the deal with Antonio Brown. This offense is obviously very prolific. I was completely wrong in my assessment that he just wouldn't be all that good. Turns out they are very good. Brady doesn't look washed whatsoever. But my biggest concern about Antonio Brown is when we chased Josh Gordon all these years, and we thought, we can stash Josh Gordon. He's going to end up on this team. It was because he was so young. He was still 24, 25. Antonio Brown's 32, for one thing. And played, 1 game last year and hadn't played since the year before that. So there's a few concerns going on about it. One, if you haven't played in that long, we don't know what your overall skill set is. A lot of people are triggered about Antonio Brown at this point, that I'm saying that he's not the best receiver in football. How the fuck am I supposed to know? And how would you actually know that out there? I would think that once guys are out of football for a while, when speed is such a high priority and the ability to run routes, the higher you get in age, the more difficult that becomes. At 32, especially at wide receiver, it's not quarterback where you can stand there and throw the ball. You need your speed, you need your skill set, and you need that football sense, which he's just been out of for so long. To get back into the rhythm of that, that is an overall concern about me. Now, I said in that video as well, if he's free, go pick him up. It's a few fab bucks, go pick him up. But the biggest value I think that Antonio Brown is going to have this season is is a trade bait. Right now, I had mentioned that if you could trade Antonio Brown for T. Higgins, do it 10 times out of 10, and then people like got back at me like, T. Higgins sucks. Antonio Brown is a top 3 receiver in football. Now, you could be right. I would say that in the range of outcomes, him being a top 3 receiver in fantasy football, and he's practicing, he'll be practicing on Wednesday this week. I don't think he's going to play in week 8, probably week 9. That what's he going to be? If you had to take the over-under, I'm curious, tell me in the comment section too. I'm very curious to know this. To finish as a top 30 wide receiver, half-point PPR scoring from week 9 to week 16, when it matters for us, for the fantasy players, how many times did he finish as a wide receiver 30 or better in an individual week the rest of the season? Would you, if I set the over-under at 2.5, would you take the over or would you take the under? I would take the under on that. So you have the potential declining skill sets, which could be true, which could be not true. We just don't know at this point. The fact that he hasn't gone through a training camp or preseason, we've seen how many soft tissue injuries have occurred so far this season. Based on there being no preseason and a limited training camp, that Antonio Brown, I would think, would fall into a highly susceptible version of that. Once you start running back at full speed, in full contact, cutting on a dime, it just leaves you so open to pulled calves and hamstrings and quads and all that crap that the potential to miss time is going to be very high for him. And then if you, like I said, if you have a hamstring injury, you're out 2 to 3 weeks. So there's half your season gone for the rest of the year anyway. That's why I'm thinking that right now it feels like his value is never going to be higher because people are so jazzed and on Antonio Brown that you package him with someone. Go up and get a great running back or something. See if they'll take fucking James Robinson for him or something. Some people are mental for Antonio Brown. Not everyone, mind you, but some people are really treating him like he's a top 5 receiver. But the biggest problem is going to be this Tampa Bay offense. They can't be trusted with anything. As we've seen, we just talked about the backfield situation where they can't decide on one guy or let us know week to week. So that just becomes a headache. It leads to bench mistakes. And how are you going to support an offense that can't already support Chris Godwin and Mike Evans at the same time? When those guys have both been on the field, Godwin's been good. Evans has been absolute trash whenever Godwin has played. Maybe he catches a lucky touchdown, but the target share discrepancy is just so high. So now we're dealing with the backfield guys who are still getting targets. So let's pencil them in for like a 10 to 15% market share of targets every single week. Godwin's going to hover around 20 to 25% because that's just what Chris Godwin does every single week. Mike Evans is going to get his 10 to 15%. Hopefully, if you own Mike Evans. And then you have the tight ends, plus Scotty Miller, who's still going to remain somewhat involved. I would assume that that's the role that Antonio Brown ends up taking, but they'll still play 4 wide receiver sets, so pencil him into like 5 to 10 every week. You got Gronk and you have Cameron Brate between them. They're probably around 10 to 15%. There's only so many targets that can go around on this team, and that's going to be the problem. Like, when I set the line at over under 2.5 top 30 weeks, I think that Godwin is still most definitely the guy to own in Tampa Bay. So then it scraps the rest of the time. Will he have a huge game? Probably at some point. It might even be his first game back. That would be optimal if you own Antonio Brown. Just don't get sucked into thinking that it's going to happen every single week. I open up the potential for me to be completely wrong about this entire thing, but I feel like we've seen this sort of scenario play itself out a lot of times, and it just never goes as well as people want it to go. People want this to go really well, except for all the people that justifiably hate Antonio Brown, who want it to go very poorly. Plus, you also have the wild card that he's an absolute maniac and might end up never seeing the field in the first place. He does something insane before he actually takes a snap. So I just think there's a lot of red flags when it comes to Antonio Brown. So if you can maximize his value right now, listen, if you miss out, you miss out. But you can probably get something good back for him at the moment. That's just a lot safer moving forward. That would be my stance on Antonio Brown. I hope to hear from you on the situation as well. Let's talk about tight ends, though, because I teased it. Now we can go into it. Mike Gesicki is back below the threshold. I have him at number 1. I just think talent-wise, he's the best. And with Tua starting, maybe it's a situation where we don't see the other tight ends do all the work and Gesicki do nothing. I'd be willing to roll the dice just because tight end is so thin. So Gesicki, Logan Thomas, who's been really good with Kyle Allen, Trey Burton, Richard Rodgers, until Goddard or Ertz come back. I'm not sure when Goddard's coming back. It could be like this week. It could be 3 weeks from now. Be a very good pickup to go have because the Eagles' schedule gets super easy all of a sudden. So I have him at number 4, Eric Ebron, Dalton Schultz, Harrison Bryant. We'll see the Austin Hooper news if he can return this week or not. I'm not sure how long an appendicitis keeps you out. And then Mo Alley-Cox at number 8. He was injured. He should be returning this week. So the overall tight ends, Zach Ertz has been placed on injured reserve. Eifert did not play in week 8. They go on bye week 9. He should be back for week 10, but that is a neck injury that could be serious. Mo Alley-Cox should be back this week after missing week 6, being on bye week 7. Dawson Knox missed the game in week 8, not like you were owning him anyway. Jordan Akins missed his 3rd consecutive game with a concussion / high ankle sprain. He's expected to return for Houston once they come back off of their bye week. And then Dallas Goedert expected to return in week 10. So Richard Rodgers for those 2 weeks. But if Goddard is out there, you can probably stash him right now, as he was very good before he ended up getting hurt. QB streams for the week. Jake and I touched on Tua last week in the ranking show. I think he's definitely worth picking up. We'll see how much he uses his legs. I mean, that's really going to be the critical point for him. He has the weapons. It's not a great start for him against the Rams this week with Aaron Donald in his face. But if he can use his mobility and protect himself, I mean, the more times that you run, the higher susceptibility you have to getting injured as it goes down. But at the same time, if he is going to use his legs and provide a rushing floor, which, may or may not happen, if he is someone who can do that, he will be a very valuable fantasy asset, potentially a top 12 guy. But for this week only, we have Teddy Bridgewater, Thursday night game at home against Atlanta. Gotta love that spot. Joe Burrow at home against Tennessee. He just loves chucking the ball. Would have been Ryan Tannehill, but he's above the threshold. Derek Carr at Cleveland. Carson Wentz against Dallas. I don't care who his receivers are. Just play people against Dallas. And then Baker Mayfield at home against the Raiders. Prefer Carr over Baker Mayfield here. I would expect Kareem Hunt to see a lot of work on the ground, and maybe that the Raiders can scheme a little bit more. And maybe the loss of Beckham was just kind of a 1 week thing, and it will actually end up hurting this offense a little bit. Still don't mind him as a stream. Wouldn't expect 5 touchdowns and a half again, though, from your streaming quarterback. Defenses that are available right now. Kansas City still below the threshold. They put up 2 touchdowns last week against Denver. Now they get the Jets. Perfect news. Chargers at number 2 at Denver. Number 3, New Orleans at Chicago. Tennessee at Cincinnati is number 4. The Green Bay Packers at home against Minnesota, who look like they're tanking the year. Number 5, Denver against the Chargers and their lack of offensive line at number 6. I'll have the updated quarterback and defense rankings out in my rankings on Monday evening, then on the ranking show updated again on Tuesday. If you want a full list for the week of all of the defenses that you could potentially go pick up if you need to, or to see if these defenses are better than the ones that you're currently housing as well. Thank you all for watching the Pat Mayo Experience. Remember to smash the like button in the comment section. Please ask me your question for the week, not start sit stuff, but trades, pickups, that sort of thing. Maybe some strategy questions. I can answer that all for you in the comment section. I'll get to those periodically. Just leave them in there. After you smash the like button, please subscribe to Mayo Media Network on YouTube. That really helps us out over here in creating more free content for you. ftndaily.com, code Mayo for the premium stuff, but all of the free stuff in the description of this video as well. And the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League link available now. $15 to play, 3 max entry, rake free best tournament on DraftKings. Reserve your spot today. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!